what needs to be focused on when evaluating the impact of a particular policy? Because so far we seem to have been focusing on projects or programs. So can you do an impact evaluation of a policy? Can you use it to see the impact UNICEF has had on upstream policy work? What's your...
Yes, you can, and this is exactly the sort of thing where you need a wider repertoire of methods and designs. Now, and my understanding is that there's sort of two stages to it. One, so this is where a national government is developing a new policy on access to schools or child rights or some particular thing. So there's two parts. One is you've got UNICEF doing things, doing capacity building activities of all sorts of kinds and so on. Then in the middle you've got the policy being developed. And then you've got some changes in how things are done as a consequence of that policy. And then you have some changes, hopefully to, impacts on institutions or households, and then it impacts for children. So there's a long causal chain, and there's attribution issues at each of those links to be done. So I think it's helpful to talk about two bits. One is when you look at the policy, and you can assess whether this is comprehensive, whether it addresses the right things, or there's how good is the policy. Is a descriptive question. What's in it, and then how good is it is evaluative. And then there's the causal question about, and what impact did UNICEF have? And particularly if you're in a pretty crowded space where there's lots of agencies, organisations, it might be important to tease out how much of that was because of UNICEF, or did UNICEF have a contribution that can be identified. So sometimes your attention is there, and other times that's not the critical place to focus. It's good enough. You say we're confident enough that UNICEF helped with the policy. What we're really interested is about impact evaluation of that policy. So not the policy as the end result, but what happens as a consequence of that. And that's where you then need to turn that into how has that policy led to changes in budget allocations, in actual practices, requirements, legislation. So it's about really teasing out all the follow-on from that policy. And here the attribution is sometimes pretty straightforward. There's been a change in the policy, there's been a change in the regulation, and now they're actually doing that. Other times it's harder to say that it was because of the policy there's been a change. If there's been a whole move around a particular issue, there might be a lot of coalescing forces that are producing these changes. So
okay.
It's a theory of change, but it's a different type of theory of change, and it's a specialist area, and it's really worth looking at those evaluations of policies.